This is our first video about the MVC pipeline for DNN. If you don't know exactly what the MVC pipeline is, you can read all about it in the blog post linked in the video description. In short, the MVC pipeline would offer an alternative way to render a page in DNN using modern technologies and making us less dependent on web forms. One of our goals was to make sure that existing sites would just keep working and that people could start using the MVC pipeline step by step so that it will allow for a gradual transition. As we want to introduce the MVC pipeline as an option, we need some settings for an administrator, both in the site settings and in the page settings, so that an administrator can choose which pipeline to use. In our demo, we will show 4 different module patterns which have been changed so that they support both web forms and the MVC pipeline. But this video is not about the changes needed to those modules. That will be covered in a later video. This is a custom DNN installation we created for this demo. As discussed before, there are 4 module patterns that have been adjusted in such a way that they also support the MVC pipeline. The first one is a web forms module which has added code so that it can also render on the MVC pipeline. That's what you see here. This is actually the HTML module with some extra code. On this page you see a SPA module. The SPA module didn't need any changes. It already worked on both pipelines. There is the MVC module, which also, like the web forms module, needed some changes to support the MVC pipeline. The only thing is that there's one disadvantage here, is that the changes needed to support the MVC pipeline would not survive an eventual step in the direction of .NET Core, because the way this is implemented doesn't exist anymore in .NET Core. Then there's the Razor Plus module, which we call the Razor Plus module because it's not actually the current Razor pattern. It's like a Razor module with a model behind it. This is something that would survive an eventual step towards .NET Core. And as the last option, we have a Web Forms module which has no added support for the MVC pipeline. In this case, that's a login module, so that you can see what happens as soon as we start changing the pipeline in the site and page settings. Now let's have a look at the implementation of the settings. If I go into site settings, site behavior, more, you can see that the portal is currently on the web forms pipeline. And you can also see that here in the source, because the whole page is wrapped in a form. As soon as I switch this to MVC, the portal will be rendered through the MVC pipeline, and I click save, refresh the page. You can see that everything still renders the way it used to, but now there's a major change. There's a tiny form at the top here, and all the rest is outside that form. And you can also see that the title contains MVC, which is something that we do for now for debugging, so that we can see whether something is in the MVC pipeline or not. You can see that this module is supported, and then the SPA module is supported, and the MVC module is supported, and so is the Razor module. We also needed to take into account that people would place a web forms module while they had selected the MVC pipeline. So to warn an administrator about that, we render a warning or an error, as you can see here. This module does not support the MVC pipeline. The way to get around this is you can also set the pipeline per page. So if I go into pages for this page, into advanced, more, you can see that the page rendering pipeline for this page is now set on inherited, meaning that it inherits the setting from the site settings. But I can also force it to use web forms or MVC specifically. If I do that and I click save and I refresh the page, you will now see that the module renders correctly again, because it now uses this page, now uses the web forms pipeline, which allows you to keep using web forms modules on some specific pages. So now everything is in the MVC pipeline, but this one is rendered through the web forms pipeline, because as you can see here, everything's wrapped in the form. Well, here you can see that there's this one little form, and then there's the rest of the site. And obviously you could also say I have only one module that supports MVC, set web forms as the default, and overrule MVC on a specific page. If you want to stay informed about this project, there is a dedicated forum about the MVC pipeline on the DNN community website. That forum has a subscribe checkbox, and if you check that, you will be notified of all the updates that we post.